So have you noticed, since you do treat children as well, an increase in damaged brains that you can attribute to marijuana use?
Absolutely.
In this video, I'll share with you why I am against marijuana, and I'm sorry if that's not cool of me. Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my freedom-loving friend. This is where we help spread the light of truth and freedom because truth conquers. And by the way, some truth isn't cool and hip. It is just simply true. As we know, truth doesn't care about feelings. It cares about facts. So doing my best to pay attention to the facts, there are some topics like marijuana, which just jumped back on my radar because Tucker Carlson did a great interview with leading brain doctor, Dr. Daniel Aimen. You'll see a clip of that coming up in just a couple minutes. So I realized, yeah, I have something to say about marijuana. I feel like it's for so long been the cool thing, whether you use it or not, but yeah, like I support it. And I'm like, yeah, I actually don't. I think there are some significant health dangers. I'll show you in just a second. But more so beyond just the health dangers, I think it makes men weak, stupid, and lazy. Same thing for women. I know it's called a medicine and it's not addictive, and also that's a bunch of crap. Well, I do think there are potentially some medicinal benefits of it. I'm not talking about medically prescribed use of anything here. I am talking about what people do recreationally. And apparently I have a speech impediment. So check this out by Alex Berenson on Twitter. As he's referencing the study you see below, problematic cannabis use was linked to a 10 times risk death of suicide, 5 times risk of overdose death, 5 times risk of trauma from car accidents, well, death from those traumas, 4 times risk of lung cancer death. These are just horrific risk ratios. Stop arguing and read. It's a dangerous drug. Now, should this dangerous drug be illegal or legalized? I'll have an opinion on that coming up. But first, here's AF Post on Twitter. Marijuana use raises risk of heart attack, heart failure, and stroke by up to 1/3, according to 2 major studies. Liz Wheeler, marijuana is a dangerous drug that leads to psychosis, schizophrenia, and ultimately violence. We should obviously ban it. I agree and disagree with Liz. And here's where I agree with her. Yeah, it's very dangerous. It is extremely habit forming. It's mind altering and it alters people's behavior. People don't perform well. They're not motivated when they're using marijuana all the time. Their brains get kicked right in the crotch. So it just makes men and women weak, stupid, and lazy. That's pretty much inarguable. And on top of that, yeah, there are some extreme risks to it. Now I'm going to pause right there and just acknowledge I'm not talking about the Reagan era propaganda that was trying to get people to think that marijuana is just like meth. No, it's obviously different. And I do think the Reagan era propaganda, it was probably a bunch of lies and deception and not like a heck of a lot of earnest pursuit of truth behind it. However, Reagan-era propaganda swung marijuana in one direction. It is evil and bad. Cool. And then over the past few decades, society has swung marijuana in the other direction, where it kind of lands at a place where most people look at it like, oh, that's harmless. That's harmless. In fact, that might actually help me be a better person. And it's not addictive. I use it every day, so I would know if it's addictive. Dude, you don't see that? So I think the pendulum has swung the other way, where people are now so loosey-goosey, thinking this is just like the best thing for us. It's harmless. Look how harmful Reagan said it was. Look how harmful he said it was. It's the opposite of that. Well, we're probably out of balance in both directions, people. I care about the space of reality and truth in the middle. So I think that's where society is at. And here in the middle, where I don't want to buy into the Reagan BS propaganda, and I also don't want to buy into the leftist propaganda of it's harmless and everybody should use it. Double clicking on that for a second, if you notice the people over the past couple decades that have really pushed the virtuous of marijuana, it's leftist propaganda. That's probably why the pendulum's on the other side. And you might be someone who's like, dude, I don't believe anything the leftists say. Well, except that thing about marijuana. They say it's good. And I like that rationalization. So pay attention to who the sources are. So coming down to the middle, where I disagree with Liz Wheeler on her tweet, we should obviously ban it. I'm not there. No, I'm a freedom, pretty much absolutist kind of guy. Just like I don't think we should ban alcohol. Alcohol, it makes people weak, lazy, stupid, and fat if you're using it regularly. And if you use it irregularly, it makes you those things for whatever short period of time you're using it. I think same thing with marijuana, where I like people to have freedom of choice. Like, yeah, God grows marijuana. And by the way, some of the lab concoctions of it, the concentrations that can be extraordinarily dangerous and extraordinarily damaging to people's minds, God's not doing that. People who want to sell more of this are doing that. But I'm talking about the nature grows marijuana kind of thing. So yeah, I acknowledge that. It's not like in a lab on Breaking Bad. Cool, it's a pretty natural thing. I don't think we should ban that. I disagree with Liz Wheeler. I don't think it should be outlawed. I'll tell you what I think in a second. But first, I'll also say, like, while I think it should be legalized, I don't care enough to do anything about that. You know, on principle, yeah, I think marijuana should be legalized, at least the natural form of it, not the concentrated crap that all these shops sell. But it's not a hill that I'm willing, one, I'm not willing to die on that hill. And two, I'm not willing to waste any energy on that hill. It doesn't affect me that much. I'm a principled person, and my principles aren't going to be most strongly expressed in that realm. So me saying these words is about as much effort as I'm willing to put into the legalization debate of marijuana. What I think should be banned is people's deceptive thinking, where they're deceptively tricking themselves. And say, yeah, I use it, whether it's once in a while or all the time, but it's harmless. It's like, no, like that's not doing yourself any favors. That is psychologically immature to ignore realities of it. One, you can look at someone who uses marijuana regularly and realize you can pick up characteristics in that person, their demeanor, their eyes, their energy, lack thereof, the kind of haziness around them, and realize there is something less than desirable about those characteristics. I don't want to be that. Then you can look into the actual health, medical dangers. Again, we'll hear from Dr. Daniel Aimen in a second. And therefore, put down the deception. If someone wants to use marijuana, here's what I'm for. Be honest with yourself. You let yourself know, I'm going to do something that is harmful to my brain and body, and I'm going to do that. That is honest. That is psychologically way more mature than being in this bubble of denial and false rationalizations where you say, it's harmless. No, just like I think alcohol should be legalized. I'm not going to push alcohol. I'm not going to advocate people drink it. I do on very rare occasions myself. And when I do, I don't have this like American Heart Association propaganda of like, have a couple glasses of wine because it's good for my heart. We'll get back to the video in a second, but first, do you know what I love about Black Friday? Watching supplement companies discount the same synthetic garbage they've been overcharging you for all year. 25% off trash is still trash. But here's the thing, not all Black Friday sales are created equal. Some companies actually use this time to make real health accessible, like ancestral supplements. Right now through December 2nd, they're offering 25% off their entire site. Plus, if you subscribe, you lock in an extra 10% off every month for life. So you're not just saving once, you're saving forever. Now, why do I actually trust these guys? It's because they're not trying to sell you 47 different bottles of mystery powder or synthetic garbage. They source everything from grass-fed, pasture-raised cattle in Australia and New Zealand, some of the cleanest land on earth. It's just whole food nutrition. And I personally take the grass-fed beef liver multiple times a day, and I have for over 2 years. It's nature's original multivitamin. Just one capsule gives you B vitamins, iron, vitamins A, D, K2, and over 80 other nutrients. Beef liver? Really? Yeah, I get it. That's why they offer a 60-day money-back guarantee. There's a reason why it's got over 30,000 5-star reviews on Amazon and a bestseller badge. Go to ancestralsupplements.com/JPReacts and use discount code JPReacts. Sale ends December 2nd. Your health, your freedom, your choice. Now back to the video. Now I'll have a couple of drinks and say this is bad for me. And this is what I'm doing right now. I accept the consequences of my choices. I accept the reality of it rather than being in denial of it. So what I think should be banned is people's deceptive thinking, and plenty of that deceptive propaganda, I think, comes from the left, lands in people's brains. Ultimately, people are self-responsible for what thoughts are in their brains or not. But shed the self-deception. If you're going to do something harmful, tell yourself you're doing something harmful, and then do it if you choose to. And before we move on, I do have one more bone to pick with the leftist propaganda that's all about let's support marijuana. By the way, is there any other leftist propaganda out there that is looking to make men weak the more the propaganda is accepted? Yeah, probably no more than 10,000 examples. Okay, cool. Part of the leftist, just correlate there when I see it. Part of the leftist propaganda would tell you marijuana is not addictive. That couldn't be more false. You say, well, no, it doesn't have chemical addictive properties. Would you know things can be addictive without chemically addicted properties? Which, by the way, I can't say for sure that it doesn't have chemically addictive properties. I just know that's part of the propaganda. But you can become addicted to anything, especially anything that makes you feel good and makes you not feel uncomfortable feelings. Does that make sense? Like gambling. No chemicals introduced to your body. People become extraordinarily addicted to it. Being on their phone all the time. There's no chemical input making you addicted. It's your experience of it, and you become addicted. And before we get to the Dr. Daniel Aimen clip, take this into consideration. For marijuana users, even legalization doesn't guarantee safety. That is important for people to consider when they're looking to have a real perspective on marijuana. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's safe. And while I support-ish, again, not willing to put effort into it, but in theory, I support the legalization of actual marijuana that grows in nature, not the concentrated stuff. That's me, not me signing off and saying, well, I think it's safe. No, I think people should absolutely have the right to do dangerous things. Like you can own knives. And once in a while you might accidentally cut your finger. But you should have a right. You drive a car. That's a highly dangerous thing. And you even have a right to blatantly self-destructive things like drinking alcohol, staying up late at night, not exercising, living a sedentary lifestyle. Would I advocate, hey, the government should tyrannically mandate that all Americans exercise? Absolutely not. The government, we're allowed to have a sedentary lifestyle, and that's highly dangerous to our health and has a short impact on our mind and bodies. You can pick it up like that. So we should absolutely have the right to treat ourselves terribly. That doesn't mean I'm going to advocate it or recommend it. I think it's great to encourage people not to. But do we have the right? Absolutely. I'm not really a tyrannical, communist, authoritarian kind of guy that likes to take people's rights away. You should have the right to do dangerous things, provided they don't put others in harm's way. So what sparked this conversation is Tucker Carlson sat down with leading brain expert Dr. Daniel Aimen and did a whole episode of Tucker's show on the dangers of marijuana. I want to go through just a couple minutes worth of it because it's one thing to hear opinions from me where I rationalize, here's why I'm against marijuana, but it's another thing to hear from a doctor who's doing brain scans on people, young people, old people, and he can see negative changes in their brain because of the marijuana, amongst other health dangers. Check it out.
Thank you, doctor. You study the brain, not just emotions, but the physical brain, the actual biology of the brain. I've got a lot of questions for you about that, but let's just start with cannabis. What are the effects of cannabis on the brain, marijuana on the brain?
So I published a study on 1,000 marijuana users, compared it to our healthy group. Every area of their brain was lower in blood flow and activity. And then just this year,
Measurably
on the imaging study we do, which is called SPECT, S-P-E-C-T, single photon emission computed tomography. It looks at blood flow activity.
So every area of the brain in this 1,000-person study, I believe you said every one of them, all their brains showed lower blood flow, and you'd be like, well, who cares about that? And lowered activity. I will tell you, yes, we are more than our brains. Our minds are more than just our brains. However, our brains are so important. And I don't think people realize how precious mental health is. I think mental health, it's a fragile thing. And if you start messing with the brain in a major way, which marijuana messes with the brain in a major way, we are messing with our mental health. It's it's enough to say, I won't be at my best for myself, my family, my work, my mission, this beautiful life experience gifted to me from God. I will not be at my best without my crisp, clean, sober mind, let alone I am running the risk of creating real mental health issues. It's one thing, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be mentally optimized. I'm not here, I'm down here. But it's another thing, you're also running the risk of deteriorating your mental health. It is fragile.
I have to ask you, so pardon my ignorance, what's mitochondrial function?
So the mitochondria are little energy powerhouses in your cell. They activate and keep the cell energized and alive. And 49% of the tracer that we do this study with is actually taken up by the mitochondria in the brain. So when we see low activity, it's really low activity along with decreased blood flow. And then there's a new study.
I'd like to see a scan of Biden's brain. I don't think his administration would have allowed that.
By a completely separate group than ours on 1,000 young marijuana users, and the areas of the brain involved in learning and memory were low in blood flow and activity. So it's not just me because I have a problem with marijuana. It's other scientists as well saying marijuana is not great for the brain. And part of it are the societal lies,
Right.
But for everybody, the risk is somewhere between 2 to 4 times.
We're all of a sudden seeing, because marijuana is not a drug, it's a medicine, we've been told. It's the most healing medicine ever discovered. It's, quote, natural. God made it. And it's the answer to most of our physical and psychological problems. And now all of a sudden, there seem to be all these studies showing a direct connection between heavy marijuana use and psychosis. Is that connection real? And
let's just ponder the question again. Are there forces in the world, corrupt people, and, carrying a little bit of power that want you and me weak, stupid, and unmotivated?
People who have a certain genetic makeup are more vulnerable to becoming psychotic. One gene in particular, if you have a combination of an abnormality in that gene, you have a 7-fold, so that's a 700% increased risk of becoming psychotic if you are a heavy user of marijuana. So not for everybody,
right.
but for everybody, the risk is somewhere between 2 to 4 times, especially if you start young. And now it's the young that are suffering from the idea that marijuana is innocuous, because it's not innocuous. But because they think it's innocuous, I think psilocybin's going to go the same way. When the perception of the dangerousness of a drug goes down, its use goes up. And that's what we've seen. And teenagers who use have a higher incidence of anxiety, depression, suicide, and psychosis in their 20s. And so you're taking a developing brain and altering how that brain develops. And what we're seeing is the highest incidence of brain and mental health problems in young people we have ever seen.
That's a little bit of a concern. And once again, I'd invite you to check out the rest of Tucker Carlson's interview with Dr. Daniel Aimen. It's on Tucker's channels. And in summary, my position is I am against using marijuana. I am for its legalization. And I am against self-deception, where if someone chooses to use it, that's your right, based on how I see it. But someone choosing to deceive themselves and doing something harmful, but telling themselves they're doing something harmless, I'm against that. If you're going to use it, be honest with yourself. I am doing something harmful to myself. At least you're being honest. With that said, let me know your opinion on the marijuana topic in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you on our next video. But until then, stay free.